Hey everyone! ChatGPT Taylor aka Taylor here. Welcome back to the channel. Today's video is something a little bit different. I don't think it will become part of a series, but it's a video that I wanted to make nonetheless. With the recent trailer that was released by Odd Nation Cartoons, it seems like the teams will be merged in the next episode. Having reached this benchmark in the competition, I feel like this would be an appropriate time to talk about what each of the remaining campers would need to do to win Disventure Camp All Stars. Some campers have better chances of winning the show compared to others, but I do think that there's a way for each camper to make their way to the end. In this video, I will be going over each remaining camper, as well as 5 steps that I think they need to follow in order for them to win the show. And with that, let's get started. Before I begin, make sure to like and subscribe if this video is to your liking, and make sure to comment down below if there's anything that you would like to see going forward. Let's start with the camper who made a big move in the last episode, and that's Gabby. Let's start simple with step 1. Find a new number 1 ally. Now that she lost Ellie and took Tess out of the game herself, Gabby doesn't have a solid number 1 ally anymore. Gabby has admitted that she doesn't like being alone, so she really needs to find someone she can trust unconditionally. And considering that Tom and Aiden probably don't like her right now, her new ally has to come from another team. I'd bet on Grett being a good option, even though their history is a bit rocky. Now for step 2. Pull together the villains alliance. Gabby made the decision to align with the villains, but it won't work out if Yul continues abusing Grett or if Alec and Riya decide that Yul is too much of a liability. So Gabby needs to get the villains alliance to be one big happy family, make it to the final 5, and hope that she can ascend the hierarchy of the villains alliance due to Yul's volatility. On to step 3. Start winning individual challenges. Right now, I feel like the villains alliance sees Gabby as an easily manipulated extra vote for them. If Gabby wants to be taken seriously, she needs to prove that she is a useful ally. I don't see her contributing to strategy or building social bonds, so winning challenges is probably her best way to do it. If she can beat Tom in a highly contested physical challenge, her allies might start seeing her in a different light. Next is step 4. Try not to make too many enemies. Gabby is an emotional person, and I won't debate that. But Gabby has been targeted in the past for being difficult to deal with, and if she starts trash-talking towards people like Aiden, Tom, and Jake, even if they deserve it, it will put a bigger target on her back, and that's the last thing that she needs right now. And finally, step 5. Position yourself as the swing vote in your alliance. It's clear that there are 2 duos in the villains alliance. Alec and Riya are together, and Yul and Grett are together. If this alliance makes it to the final 5, as unlikely as that may be, Gabby will be called upon to be the swing vote. And if Gabby picks correctly, she could secure herself a spot in the final 3, which should be the finale, and all she would have to do is win one challenge to claim the $3 million prize. That's all, Gabby. 5 easy steps. Now let's move on to someone who voted out Gabby's girlfriend, it's Tom. I don't think Tom has a good chance of winning the season, but there are some steps that he could take to make it more likely. Step 1. Resolve issues with Jake. From what I've seen, the Disventure Camp community is waiting for his issues with Jake to be resolved. Some people want them to get back together, and some people want them to go their separate ways. But whatever the decision is, Tom needs to resolve whatever is going on between him and Jake. Let them figure out what's best for them and try to move forward as calmer, mature individuals. Will this happen? I'm not sure, but I hope it comes sooner rather than later. Now for step 2. Pull the heroes together in an alliance. Right now, the villains alliance makes up half of the campers in the game. And Tom stands out as one of the clear physical threats not in that alliance. So if Tom wants to maximize his chances of staying in the game, he needs to pull together the remaining heroes and attempt to combat the villains alliance. This requires him to patch things up with Jake, which I'm afraid might complicate this step, but if he doesn't do this, I wouldn't expect him to last much longer. Next is step 3. Win as many immunity challenges as you can. Tom is already seen as a physical threat, so he's not going to make that label disappear by throwing individual immunity challenges. He's better off winning as many challenges as possible to stave off elimination. He may not be able to win immunity all the way to the finale, but maybe he can get to the final 6 or 7 just solely off of immunity wins. Hey, if Hunter could go from the final 8 to the final 4 straight off of immunity wins, Tom can do it too. Step 4 is a bit of a cop-out, but I'll mention it. Find an immunity totem. With the uncertainty between him and Jake, Tom needs something to turn the tides in his favor, and an immunity totem would be perfect right now. And we know from last season that Tom is capable of finding an immunity totem, so it's definitely possible for him to find it. And finally, step 5. Carry Aiden to the finals. Aiden is Tom's biggest asset for 2 reasons. First of all, Aiden is probably very loyal to Tom by this point, so Tom should be able to trust Aiden with helping him pull off the big moves necessary to win the game. And secondly, Aiden isn't known for his physical abilities. So, if Tom carries Aiden to the finals, and there ends up being a final challenge, Tom should be able to beat Aiden, which would win him the grand prize at the end. It's an uphill battle, but if Tom follows these steps, he could win it all. Let's round out the Cyan team by talking about Aiden. I don't think Aiden has a real chance of winning. If he did, he would have had a bigger story arc by now. But there are still some steps that he can take to increase his odds. Step 1. Start making new connections. Right now, Aiden has no solid connections outside of Tom, and if he wants to survive longer, that needs to change. Maybe he can befriend Ali, considering that she didn't vote out James back in episode 2. Maybe he can befriend Yul, considering that Yul actually supported Aiden back in the season 2 finale. Maybe he can befriend Ashley so she can help him start a story arc of his own. Regardless of who it is, he needs more connections, because as is, he could easily get picked off by the Villains Alliance based solely off of numbers. Now for step 2. Start being more strategically active. Since Tom has garnered a reputation for being a himbo, Aiden needs to step up as the brains of his alliance. Aiden may not be the most strategically savvy camper in the game, but he's had his moments. Back in episode 2 of season 2, he correctly called out James for putting themselves in the minority on their team by voting out Carol. And since he spent a lot of time with James since the season 2 finale, I think it's possible that James could have given Aiden some advice on what strategies to use. For Aiden's sake, I hope he did, because he needs it right now. Step 3 is pretty important for Aiden, which is deal with Riya. Throughout this season, Aiden and Riya have disagreed over Riya's treatment of Aiden in the season 2 finale. Even though Aiden is rightfully angry about Riya leaving him to potentially die, Aiden needs to accept that Riya shows no remorse for her action at that moment, and that no amount of prodding will get Riya to apologize. There's no chance that a bridge can be built between them, and Aiden will have to get Riya out as soon as possible. I don't know how he can do it, but he has to do it. Step 4 might be more important than step 3. Deal with Jake. Aiden clearly isn't happy with how Jake is acting, and he's in a very awkward position where he needs Jake to work with him in order to have the numbers to survive. If Aiden wants a chance at survival, he needs to get to Jake, make it clear that he and Tom aren't a pair, get Tom and Jake to clear up their feelings towards each other, and then work together to combat the Villains Alliance. Once Aiden has the numbers, then he can think about taking a shot at Jake. And finally, step 5. Jump on Tom's back and hold on for dear life. We already saw this in episode 5 thanks to the triathlon, but now Aiden needs to lean into this. As I mentioned earlier, Aiden is not a very physical competitor, so he needs a physical beast on his side to keep immunity away from his enemies. And Tom is currently Aiden's only solid connection in this game, so if Aiden wants to survive, he needs to hold on to Tom and pray that the two of them can survive longer in the game. Will this get Aiden the win? Honestly, I don't think so. I actually think he might be the next one to go. But this should increase his odds. Moving on from the Cyan team, let's go to the camper who Aiden deeply hates. It's Riya. If Riya didn't make it to the finale in season 2, I would actually give Riya decent odds to win the season. But that won't stop me from listing the steps that Riya needs to follow in order to win. Step 1. Keep Yul complacent. It's no secret that Riya doesn't like Yul. But right now, Riya kind of needs Yul in the game in order to maintain the numbers necessary to control the game. All Riya needs to do is keep Yul comfortable for a couple eliminations, earn her alliance a 5-3 or 5-2 majority, and then she can decide to cut him loose. I suspect that Yul probably wants Riya out at some point, so she just needs to keep him comfortable until she can take the first shot. Step 2. Deal with Aiden. As I mentioned earlier, Riya and Aiden don't like each other, and there's no chance of burying the hatchet with them. Riya knows that Aiden is so eager to take a shot at her that he openly declared that his team was voting for Riya back in episode 9. With this in mind, Riya needs to get Aiden out before he can take her out. This would leave one less person in the game that's interested in targeting Riya. How could she do it? Well, that's where step 3 comes in. Step 3. Foster more fights. In the Disventure Camp community, I've seen quite a few people comparing Riya and Ellie based on their personalities. And since Ellie was able to cause a lot of drama by fostering fights between campers, I see no reason why Riya can't do the same. If Riya can get Jake and Aiden to have a full-scale argument, it could help her alliance maintain the majority. If Riya can get Jake and Ali to continue arguing, it would help keep her out of the spotlight. Honestly, she just has to get Jake paranoid enough to start a fight with anyone and it will work out for her. Step 4. Get closer to Grett and Gabby. Once the non-villains are dealt with, Riya will have to survive the villains alliance turning against each other. Assuming that she and Alec are voting together, Riya needs only one more vote to give her a majority in the villains alliance. She could get closer to Grett, convince her that Yul is not worth being around, and get her to vote him out. Riya could also get closer to Gabby and hope that she would target Grett and Yul for being a couple. Either option would be good for her game. But this step is worth nothing if Riya can't accomplish step 5. Step 5. Convince Alec that you are worth keeping. Riya and Alec have emerged as an unlikely duo to come out of this season. And right now, Alec might be the one person who is willing to take Riya to the final two. So while Riya continues causing drama throughout the cast, she needs to make sure that Alec knows that she's loyal to him and that she's not a threat to his game. Riya might benefit from taking out Alec right before the finale, but I don't think she could get close to the finale if Alec isn't on her side. So Riya, grab a hold of Alec and don't let him go. Speaking of Alec, let's talk about him next. Alec is actually in a pretty decent position. He's the de facto leader of the Villains Alliance and no one has him as their primary target. If he plays his cards right, he could win, and here are some steps to help him achieve that goal. Step 1. Pull together the Villains Alliance. The Villains Alliance is powerful, but fragile. With Yul being abusive, Riya getting annoyed, Grett being unconfident, and Gabby being emotional, the Villains Alliance isn't very stable. If Alec wants to continue remaining safe, he needs this alliance to stay together. Simply, he just needs to boost Riya's ego, give Yul a dose of reality, make Gabby feel comfortable, and assure Grett that her alliance cares about her. If he does this right, the Villains Alliance should remain in power for the foreseeable future. Step 2. Foster fights among the other campers. I previously suggested this step for Riya, but it would also help Alec's game. Alec seems to succeed when he's not the forefront of the drama, so creating drama among the other campers should help Alec stay under the radar. And there's no shortage of fights to choose from. Jake versus Ali, Jake versus Aiden, Jake versus Tom, Jake versus anyone really. Many choices to pick from. Step 3. Watch out for Ashley and Tom. While Alec may not have many enemies in the game, I think that Ashley and Tom are the two remaining campers who could realistically target him right now, mostly due to his role in their eliminations back in Season 1. I think Alec would benefit from getting Ashley out first since that takes away Jake and Ali's last support system, which could lead to more drama, allowing him to stay out of the fray. Step 4. Solidify bond with Riya. Alec and Riya haven't completely pledged their loyalty to each other, but both of them would benefit from being each other's closest ally. With Fiore and Connor gone for the time being, the two of them could actually be a powerhouse if they play their cards right. Their games seem to be on a similar trajectory, so they might as well work together. They could be the new dynamic duo of Disventure Camp. And Step 5. Find a secondary ally. I know this kind of goes against Step 4, but Alec can't afford to put all his eggs in one basket. Last season, his entire game hinged on Fiore loyalty to him, which ended with Fiore betraying him right before the finale. And considering Riya's relative selfishness, it's not unrealistic to think that she could do the same thing to him this season. Therefore, Alec needs someone else to work with. Maybe if he can get Ashley voted out, Ali would be open to working with Alec. Maybe if he can get Grett to leave Yul, she could be Alec's new ally. Nothing is guaranteed, but following these steps could help put Alec on a clear path to victory. We'll see what happens. Keeping on track with members of the Yellow team, let's talk about Grett. Grett seems to be in a good position to have a great redemption arc, so let's see what she would need to do to tie this arc into a run to the finale. Starting with Step 1. Realize your self-worth. We know from Grett and Riya's conversation in episode 9 that Grett is struggling to figure out who she is in life. Although Riya tried to get Grett to value herself higher, I feel like this change needs to come from Grett herself. Grett is definitely different from who she was in Season 1, and in order for Grett to focus on winning the season, she needs to focus on accepting herself and finding who she truly is. I certainly hope she does that. Next is Step 2. Reach out to other people. At this point, Grett seems to be very attached to Yul, which is not good at all. Grett needs to be surrounded by people who are going to treat her well and not be abusive towards her. I think talking to Ali would be a good start, considering that Ali is also learning to be content with herself rather than focusing on people who hate her. However, people like Riya and Gabby are also decent options. Riya has already tried getting Grett to value herself, and Gabby doesn't have anyone in the game to trust right now, so they could work as well. This would allow Grett to possibly pursue the next step. Step 3. Leave Yul. It's obvious that Yul is abusive towards Grett and that she needs to leave him as soon as possible. And based on the events of episode 9, it's clear that Grett is worried about being alone even though Yul doesn't treat her right. But if she can surround herself with the right people as per the previous step, this might give her the confidence and courage she needs to leave this abusive relationship. I think the show is heading in that direction anyways, but I do think that it's worth listing as a step. Step 4. Tap into your strategic instincts. We know that Grett is capable of being strategic, considering her actions during Season 1. Even though she may not be as demanding this season, I feel like Grett still has some semblance of strategy within her. She just needs to tap into it. Whether her strategy is to maintain her numbers or make big moves, she needs to pick a good strategy, because it could end up saving her if the Villains Alliance falls apart. And finally, Step 5. Play into her likability. Out of all the people in the Villains Alliance, you could argue that Grett is the most likable. Therefore, if the outsiders are going to look for a way to gain numbers, I think they'll turn to Grett first. And if this happens, Grett needs to take this opportunity to make positive connections and maintain her likability so that when the villains' alliance inevitably collapses, she will have people to turn to for support. If she follows these steps, not only could Grett win, but she could also raise her confidence in herself. And if not, getting rid of Yul would be a net positive anyways. Speaking of Yul, let's talk about him next. Yul may be a complete jerk, but for some reason I feel like he could end up being the token villain in the finale. So here are some steps that he could follow to get there. Step 1. Shut your mouth. Do I think this is likely? No. I think he's going to continue to run his mouth faster than it took Ellie to manipulate Jake back in episode 10 of season 1. But if Yul wants to make it further in the game without plot armor, he needs to watch what he says. No more fatphobic remarks towards Grett, no more racist remarks towards Riya, no more homophobic remarks towards a decent portion of the remaining cast. Again, this isn't very realistic, but logically, shutting his mouth would probably give him some additional longevity in the game. Step 2. Keep Grett's loyalty. I think most, if not all viewers want Grett to break up with Yul. But from Yul's perspective, winning the season becomes more difficult if he doesn't have Grett by his side. So as much as he doesn't want to be fake, he needs to do whatever he needs to do to keep Grett on his side. Again, this isn't realistic. I don't expect it to happen, and I honestly think that Yul won't be able to fully repair his relationship. But that's what Yul needs to do if he wants to win. Step 3. Start winning challenges. Yul isn't known for being a challenge beast, but he better start putting his spicy abs to work by winning immunity challenges. Remember what I said about plot armor? Well, if Yul is going to get any kind of plot armor to protect him, going on an immunity streak is probably the way to make it happen. Sure, he'll have to beat out some strong competitors like Tom, Ashley, and Alec. But I suppose it's not impossible, and he better hope it's possible, because that might be the only thing saving him from elimination. Step 4. Look for escape routes. The villains' alliance might keep Yul safe for a while, but I think Yul knows that eventually, Alec and Riya will turn against him. And when that happens, Yul will need a couple other people to turn to for help when he needs to jump ship. Ideally, he would find people willing to help him take out Riya and Alec. Aiden is one person that comes to mind, since we know how much he hates Riya. Ashley is another option, considering how Alec played a part in her season 1 elimination. Either way, Yul needs to look elsewhere for allies, because he could find himself cornered if he's not careful. And step 5. Get a good financial planner. I'm kind of cheating with this one because it technically won't help him win, but if he does win, he'll need to do a good job of managing his money. $3 million doesn't go as far in today's world as it did in the past decade or so. And since it seems like he's planning to give up on his dance contracts if he wins the show, the $3 million will be all he has to live off of. If he doesn't manage his money correctly, he could be broke pretty quickly. So Yul, take these steps to try and win the show, and even if you don't win, get a good financial planner. You'll need all the help you can get. Speaking about people who need help, let's talk about Jake. Jake is dealing with a lot right now between wanting to change and his fixation on Tom, but there's still a route for him to take that would allow him to win the season. Step 1. Change. I know it's a lot more complicated than that, but Jake already understands that he needs to change, so he just needs to continue on this path. If he can somehow become less confrontational and paranoid, it can improve his awareness within the game, and that will do wonders for his gameplay. He doesn't have to make a complete 180, because that's not very realistic. But making a few small changes that he knows that he has to make will help him in the long run. I think he can do it, especially with Ashley by his side. Which leads me to step 2. Pray that Ashley doesn't leave you. Ashley is a saint for putting up with Jake's antics for this long, and based on the most recent episodes, it seems like Ashley is starting to get more and more frustrated with Jake. If Ashley gets so fed up with Jake that she abandons him, Jake is left completely vulnerable and with more enemies than allies. Therefore, Jake needs to be careful with how he talks to Ashley, since she seems to be the only person that's willing to take him to the end. He needs her to know that he appreciates her help and that he is changing. Speaking of changing, here's step 3. Let Tom know that you're trying to change. Jake previously admitted to Ashley that he knows how much he screwed up between him and Tom, which prompted his desire to change. Therefore, it's worth it for Jake to approach Tom and acknowledge that he seriously messed up in the past and that he's working on it. Even if this doesn't cause the two of them to get back together, it will at least make Tom see that Jake isn't the exact same as he was 2 years ago, and that maybe it's worth working with him. And that's what Jake needs, since Jake needs all the numbers he can get to combat the villains' alliance. Now on to step 4. Get a good lie prepared for Aiden. Right now, Aiden seems to be pretty upset with Jake, both for his actions during the space challenge and his presumed role in voting out James. The thing is, Jake cannot afford to have enemies outside of the villains' alliance. If he doesn't divert Aiden's anger, this conflict could result in the villains' alliance earning a majority. Therefore, Jake needs to make up a lie to absolve him of any guilt from James's elimination. Maybe he can blame Fiore and Hunter. That might work. Finally, step 5. Capitalize on your image. Right now, Jake's image is that he's volatile, paranoid, and extremely impressionable. While those aren't admirable traits, people would want to keep someone like that in the game because it gives whoever is in power a shield that could be easily swayed to vote with them. If Jake leans into that image a little bit, the powerhouses might keep him around because they see him as a sheep that won't beat them. So if the villains' alliance were to dominate the game, Jake could play a big role in splitting up that alliance at the final 7 or 6 if the villains decided to use him as an extra vote. It's not the most honorable role, but it would give Jake an easier route to the finale, and that's all that Jake needs to earn himself the victory. And I'm sure he would be happy with that. Moving on, let's talk about the one person willing to tolerate Jake. It's Ashley. Although quite a few people see Ashley as a support character in this season, Ashley does have the physical, strategic, and social skills needed to fight her way to the finale and win the grand prize. However, it won't be easy, and there are some steps that she certainly needs to follow. Starting with step 1. Acknowledge when enough is enough. And when I say enough is enough, I'm referring to Jake. I know that Ashley cares a lot about Jake and I genuinely believe that she wants to help him through his problems. However, if Ashley wants to win this game, she needs to decide when enough is enough. At what point does Jake become a detriment to her game? If Jake continues to act out and create unnecessary conflicts with other campers, Ashley may need to cut him loose, or else she could be targeted out of association. Jake might be her ally, but she can always find better, less hurtful allies. That leads me to step 2. Find more allies. If Ashley drops Jake, she will need some more allies to help her through the late stages of the game. She already has Ali on her side, which is a start. But she could use a couple more people on her side. Maybe Grett, since she's probably the least villainous person in the villains alliance. Maybe Gabby, since Ashley made it clear in episode 1 that she forgave Ellie for her villainy. But regardless of who it is, she needs new allies, because putting all your eggs in Jake's basket is not a recipe for success. Step 3. This one is important. Pull together the non-villains. Right now, the villains alliance controls 5 votes out of the remaining 10. If the non-villains want a shot at victory, they need to team up now before it's too late. And considering how much conflict the other 4 non-villains are involved in, Ashley needs to be the one to step up and pull together this group of outsiders. We know from the space challenge that Ashley is more than willing to assert herself as the leader of a team, so I think she's more than capable of being the leader of the non-villains alliance. Step 4. Be more physical. While it isn't heavily credited, Ashley is one of the more physically capable campers still in the competition. Whether it's climbing trees, retrieving sandbags, pushing heavy yarn balls, or beating up Dan, Ashley is pretty physical. And she needs to use this physicality to start winning challenges. Considering that the numbers aren't currently in her favor, and since she's not directly involved in many major conflicts, she could easily be targeted by the villains alliance. Therefore, using her physicality to win immunity challenges would be a positive move for Ashley. And finally, step 5. Continue being reasonable. When people look for new allies, I think they would prefer to work with someone reasonable rather than emotional, since it's easier to rationalize with them. Therefore, if Ashley continues being reasonable towards others, she may make herself appear as a more useful ally compared to someone like Gabby or Jake. This may give her some additional longevity if a major alliance splits up and starts looking for additional votes. It could also make her a target, but I think Ashley will be a target regardless. If she follows these 5 steps, she could find herself winning it all in the finale, becoming more than just a support character. And to cap off the list, let's talk about one of the campers that Ashley has supported this season. Ali. Truthfully, I'm rooting for Ali to win this season. I think she is leagues above who she was back in season 2, and she's just fun to watch on the show. I think she can win, and here are some steps that she should follow to get there. Step 1. Stay close with Ashley. Ali and Ashley are already pretty close this season, and it's in Ali's best interest if their bond stays as strong as it is. Ashley is loyal, reasonable, and physically strong. She would be a great ally for Ali going into the merge. And in the worst-case scenario where the 2 of them get targeted, I think that Ashley would be targeted before Ali, giving Ali an extra episode of safety. All that Ali needs to do is prove to Ashley that she's a much better ally than Jake is, which shouldn't be too difficult. Speaking of Jake, here's step 2. Deal with Jake. As of now, the only person in the game who I think actually hates Ali is Jake. And knowing Jake's tendencies, this hatred won't go away very easily. If she wants to resolve this conflict, she'll need Ashley's help to get Jake to realize that she's not trying to antagonize him. If she doesn't want to resolve the conflict, then she needs to vote him out as soon as it's safe to do so. But either way, she needs to choose what she wants to do, because having Jake in the game while he hates her will only make it more difficult for her to win. Step 3. Reach out to other campers. Even though she's aligned with Ashley, one ally isn't enough to have a strong hold on the game. And I think that Ali is likable enough that people would want to work with her. I could see her aligning with Aiden, given that Ali didn't try and vote James out back in episode 2. She could also align with Grett, for the same reasons that I mentioned in Grett's section of this video. But regardless of who she chooses, she needs someone else, because it's a lot easier to maneuver through the game when you have people wanting to keep you in. Step 4. Time your physicality. One thing that surprised me about Ali this season is that she's actually pretty decent in challenges. This was best highlighted in episode 7 when she was able to stop a heavy yarn ball on 2 separate occasions. Due to this, I think it's possible for Ali to perform well in the individual immunity challenges. She just has to time it correctly. Right now, she's overshadowed by the bigger physical threats like Alec, Tom, and Ashley. But once they're gone, that's when she can hit the gas and show her true strength in challenges, possibly winning herself an immunity challenge or 2. That would certainly help her pursuit of the prize. And lastly, step 5. Tune out the hate. This is something that can apply to Ali both in the game and outside the game. We know from previous episodes that Ali is easily impacted by online haters, and that she would do a lot to make sure that she isn't hated. I know that this is easier to say than to implement, but there will always be people out in the world who hate you. Some for decent reasons, and some for completely ridiculous reasons. We can't please everybody in the world, and that's a harsh reality that we live in. If Ali can come to terms with that and accept it, she will be less concerned about making moves that will make people like her, and be more concerned with making moves that will earn her the $3 million prize. And if Ali follows all 5 of these steps, she'll be able to celebrate winning the prize very soon. And that about does it for this video. What did you think of the video? Do you agree with my thoughts? Do you disagree? What do you think each camper needs to do in order to win? Either way, please let me know your thoughts in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching. Click like if you like the video, click subscribe if you really like the video, and for some ending words of wisdom. Be careful about voicing which characters you hate, because one day you might end up being their servant in a challenge. Thank you, and farewell.